Hello, hello. Hey. Hi, guys. Thanks for coming out. My name's Kevin, and we're going to talk about Microsoft EMET. We'll do just a little overview of what it is, what it does, how it works, some features and mitigations in it, some downsides that you might have if you deploy EMET in your world. Is anybody running EMET in their environment right now? Yeah? Excellent. Deployed like throughout an enterprise or just running local on your machine? Everywhere? Good. Local? Okay, cool. What? Yeah, thousands. Perfect. In the five. That's good. So, again, my name's Kevin Gennuso. I'm Senior Security Architect at Dick's Sporting Goods. I got a background through all kinds of different industries. I'm an advanced persistent Pittsburgher. I've been there for my whole life, born and raised, and I'm still there. And I landed my first job in IT security via a post-interview pen test. I really wanted this job, and I was trying to impress the heck out of the hiring manager. And I asked him at the end of the interview, hey, would you mind if I took a look at your network from the outside, when I get home tonight? And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I was like, would you mind signing this thing, please? And he signed it, and he was like, yeah, no problem, So he came in the next morning, and on his desktop was a little icon that said, double click me, Brad. And I said, dude, you need to do some work on your firewalls. And remember, this is 1998. You could sneeze on something and get root. So it was pretty easy, not very impressive. But it's my second time at Bsides Cleveland, and thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it. So what's the problem we're trying to solve? Well, number one, patching is hard, right? The need to test patches slows the defenders down, which is unfortunate. And then you have the non-Microsoft vendors who don't exactly make it easy to roll out patches. I'm looking at you, Oracle. And then we have applications that depend on legacy code, ancient versions of Java that have to stick around so that the application continues to work. And it's a tough problem, and I'm sure everybody out there has that. Now, the thing that is really irritating about Oracle especially is that Microsoft has now declared the Ask toolbar as malware, so Oracle is installing malware as a part of Java, which is awesome. So thanks for that, guys. The other problem is that the attackers are fast. An exploit for MS14064 was out 2 days after the patch, a public exploit anyway, but it was being attacked in the wild well before the patch ever came out. And then things like exploit kits are making things trivial from an attack standpoint. Just go get some magic internet money, aka Bitcoin, and go buy your exploit kit, and boom, you're a hacker. So, good times. So Kaspersky and Cisco both agree that 95% of all the major attacks are against Java, Adobe products, and the big Microsoft products, Internet Explorer, Microsoft Office. So if we can do something to eliminate that attack surface, then we're seriously improving, our security and our posture against some of these major attacks. So a solution is EMET. It's not the solution; it is a solution to help mitigate some of this risk. It stands for Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit. It's a Microsoft product since 2009. So they've been working on this for a little while now, and they continue to release new versions of it. It's definitely an active project at Microsoft. It's free as in beer and B-sides. It provides some advanced protection against known and unknown threats, and it's the unknown threats that is super great there. There's no signature we're talking about here. This is, stuff that's new. We haven't seen it before, but it can still protect against it. And interesting fact that only one cash prize, 150 grand, went unclaimed at the last pwn to own, and it was IE11 secured with EMET. So pretty good stuff. And it is also Hacking Dave approved. He's talked about this a number of times as, a penetration tester, how frustrating it can be to run into an organization that's running EMET because it blows up a lot of his attacks. So he approves. See, gives a thumbs up. So some features. It's user-defined and on a per-application basis. So it's a little different. It's not like a typical application whitelisting where you say only these things are allowed. You're defining which applications you want to protect with it. And then it protects the commonly attacked software out of the box, like right out of the box after you install. It's going to protect Internet Explorer, Microsoft Office Suite, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, The Java runtime environment, not the ASC toolbar. That is not going to be protected by EMET. And the Adobe products, Acrobat and Reader. Flash is possible. It's not out of the box. It takes a lot of customization, but you can do Flash in there as well. It's regularly updated, like I said. EMET 5.1 came out in November of 2014. The latest version, which is 5.2, came out in March. So it seems like they're on about a 6-month cadence for new minor revs of EMET. But definitely, you know, they're working on it. All versions of Windows supported. In the 4.x version, even XP was supported. You get limited mitigations on Server 2003, which no one is running anymore because it's going away in a month, right? I'm sure no one has 2003 in their environment. And again, not signature-based, which makes me do that. So we'll talk about some of the mitigations. There are different classes of mitigations, and we'll just go through them real quick. So the first one is SEHOP. That's Structured Exception Handler Overwrite Protection. You're protecting your stacks with this mitigation. So it prevents stack overflows, essentially. Data execution prevention. This is one of those things that has previously had to be compiled into the application to support it. Now, with EMET running, it's application agnostic. Doesn't matter if the developer compiled it in. It'll inject the EMET DLL into the application and make sure the dep's running. And those attacks are blocked at the CPU level. So very low level blocking of those types of attacks. Heap spray allocation. So a typical in an attack scenario, your attacker will attempt to spray shellcode throughout memory in the hopes that eventually, whenever the pointer returns, they're going to hit their shellcode. This actually prevents that because it says, no, you're just going to get this amount of memory allocated, and that's the only place that you can put anything. So it helps reduce that kind of threat surface. Mandatory ASLR. Again, ASLR is one of those things that the application could compile it in if they wanted to. With EMET, it makes address randomization mandatory. So any application that fires up, the memory locations are going to be randomized, so it makes it tougher to guess where a pointer might land, and again, tougher to guess where your shellcode is going to be in memory as an attacker. EAF and EAF Plus, they categorize these as two different things, but they're really the same stuff. It says that system APIs that might be useful to an attacker are unavailable. So it makes it tougher for them to get things done because now they can't call the system APIs like built-in Windows APIs to actually get their job done. They have to bring everything that they need. Bottom-up randomization, that's pretty much the same as ASLR, just for bottom-up memory allocations. ROP mitigations, so that's referring to return-oriented programming, where you're counting on a pointer to return to a certain place in memory. This is an entire class of mitigations. Microsoft goes into great detail. I won't do it here. But the idea is it prevents code from being executed out of the stack. So that makes it, again, very difficult. If I have shellcode sitting in the stack, it's not going to execute. It also prevents libraries from being loaded over UNC paths. So if I happen to have a node on your network and I have some libraries that I want to load up from my box that's attached to your network, this is going to prevent that from happening. And then some of the ROP mitigations are only for 32-bit systems. This is where Microsoft is doing the most work because obviously people are moving away from 32-bit and going 64-bit. So they've been making improvements over time with EMET with this particular thing. ASR, attack surface reduction, this is your Java win. This thing is really great because it lets you say things like only sites in the trusted sites store can run Java, or only systems on the internal network can run Java and not on the outside. It also lets you say things like Microsoft Word can't run Adobe Flash. Why would it ever run Adobe Flash? And it'll let you say things like Visual Basic scripts can only run internally, and that's actually a new one in EMET 5.2, support for Visual Basic. Control Flow Guard, this is another brand new EMET 5.2 feature. This it's another thing where the application has to be compiled in, and it's only for applications that are written in Visual Basic Studio 2015. But this essentially allows you to define a flow of a particular application and then say that the application can't do anything except that flow. Again, another way of saying that, trying to make the application behave the way it's supposed to, as opposed to allowing an attacker to jump outside and execute shellcode. And then there's certificate pinning, something that you might want to do for things like your VPN or for other, your webmail sites, things where you should always see the same certificate all the time. You can actually build in what the certificate should be, and then whenever the machine attempts to connect to that site, it checks the certificate against the one that's being presented by the remote host, compares them, and says, okay, this is either a valid host or not. And the idea there is to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. That's it for the mitigations. That's a lot of noise all at once. Anybody have questions? All right, I'll keep going. So some downsides. It's certainly not a panacea. This has been bypassed. Every version of EMET has been bypassed by security researchers, and sometimes it happens within a week of the latest version being released. So it can definitely be bypassed, but that's not necessarily something that somebody that's trying to compromise a ton of hosts at once, they're not necessarily going to build in EMET bypass into their attack because it's expensive, it's big as far as a download goes, and they're really just looking for the low-hanging fruit, and that's not going to be people running EMET. And it doesn't protect everything by default. Again, it's user-defined, so you have to say which applications you want to protect. It requires some pretty heavy pre-deployment testing. You don't want to just jam it out the door and hope. It tends to be a little easier to deploy if you don't do a ton of heavy customization. You don't add a ton of additional applications that you want to protect. Microsoft is pretty good about making sure that EMET works with their own stuff. The Java stuff is pretty straightforward. So as you add customizations to it, that's when your testing is going to increase. So just something to take into consideration. And very limited GPO settings. You can't push a ton of this stuff from AD necessarily. So a very good way to deploy this is to actually put the configuration XML file out onto a share, and then have each of your clients, whenever they log into the network, run some sort of auto login script or scheduled task or something like that to go grab the XML from a central location and pull it down that way. That's how you're going to get the most control. There is no version checking or hashing of the XML file to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with or anything like that. I would hope that that's coming, but right now it's pretty dumb. It's just going to go fetch whatever XML file is sitting out there in the location that you specified and pull it down to the location where you need it. And I just lost power. Sorry, guys. And another downside, no central reporting. It's going to write either to the event log or it's going to pop something to the user saying, hey, dummy, you almost got popped. There's nothing you can do as far as central. Now, if you have something on your endpoints that is scraping the event log and pointing it to a central location, then you're going to get the alerts. But out of the box, it's just going to write locally. So some deployment targets, obviously your end user workstations. That's a good place to start. Citrix servers, another really good spot because Citrix servers are essentially end user workstations. And then some other places, point of sale systems, if you deal with those. ATMs, if you deal with those. Jump servers, things that are like bastion hosts where people tend to be on there all the time. Maybe every once in a while they fire up IE and start browsing the internet like they shouldn't. Other high-value servers, of course, but not domain controllers. Microsoft specifically recommends against deploying EMET on DCs. Okay, so that's the slide content of this mess. So we can do a demo if you guys are interested. The setup will be 2 virtual machines, 1 jerk. I'm the jerk. And the virtual machines will look like this. So the first virtual machine will be the iBub. It is the intentionally broken and unpatched box. This guy hasn't seen patches for many moons. The one that it's missing that's very interesting is MS14064, which is CVE 2014 6332. That's an OLE buffer overflow vulnerability. We're also running ancient JRE 7.0, circa 2011. It's got CVSS vulnerabilities of 10 out the yin yang. It's really bad. Some prehistoric Adobe Reader from 2008, so that should be nice and secure. And then the user's running as local admin, and we've disabled antivirus. So this guy's standing out in the wind, naked, and just ready to be exploited. And then the other VM will be the latest version of Kali Linux running Metasploit. And the idea is we do before and after photos. So we'll see how everything works without EMET, and then we'll install EMET just out of the box, vanilla config. We won't do anything to it. And then we'll attempt to re-own it using the exact same exploits. So let me get the VM set up and we'll do this. Okay, so that's the Windows box. It's not very pretty. Doesn't have an internet connection. I could go through and show you that there are no patches here, but I mean, it's like, oh my God, what are you doing to me? No virus protection whatsoever. So we're going to start out with the MS14064 exploit. This one is super reliable. It works all the time. And you can see it setting up here. Okay. And the server started. So that's the address of the Kali box. We hit it. It does something. Oh, PowerShell. Yeah, that sounds delicious. Let me run that. I'm sure nothing bad will happen there. And there we go. We have an interpreter session open. Box has been exploited via that particular attack. So next we'll move on to Java. This one is also extremely reliable against Java 7. It's Java verifier field access. Okay, we're ready to go. Okay, wheels are turning, things are happening. There we go. Interpreter session 2 open. Easy peasy. And then we're just going to set up a handler here. So those two are the examples for like drive-by web attacks. Oops. You know, your typical users running around on the internet and just happen to come across a nasty website that sends them those two exploits. This one, we're going to try to mimic a malicious PDF attachment. Now, this PDF is completely not evil. It says so right in the file name, so you can believe it. Oh, no. Sorry, I'm having some resolution issues. Shit. Oh man, I really wanted you to see this error message where it's like, please, yeah. To view the encrypted content, please show the "do not show this message again" box and click open. Right? Seems legit. So we're just going to hope that that actually did the trick. Now, I think I clicked the incorrect button. How do I do this? Ah, come on, man. It's not going to help. Ah, darn it. I think I'm going to be able to show you this one, guys. I can guarantee to you that it works. I can actually see what the hell is going on. Damn it. Alright. Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you the PDF exploit, which is irritating. So, great. I'll just tell you that it works. You can take my word for it. I can show you a recorded demo of that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to install EMET and just take all the defaults, reboot, and see how it goes after that's done. Oh, that'll help. Yeah. Yeah, let's try that. Looks like I made it worse. Yeah, I did. Ah, okay, that might be better. Okay, let's try this one more time. Sorry, guys. Okay, we got our listener. One more time. Aha. Open. Hey, look at that. PDF gave us a interpreter session. It's a long way to go to do that, but it worked. Okay. Do EMET one more time. And again, this is just going to be a vanilla out-of-the-box install. We're not going to mess with any of the configs. But I will blow open the console just so you can see what it looks like and some of the options that you have available to you. Now, unfortunately, one thing that's a little difficult to configure in EMET is Adobe Flash. And the reason for that is Adobe Flash, depending on the version that you install, it installs to a new path for every version. So it makes it difficult because now if you have to account for 5 or 6 different versions of Flash in your environment, you have to have all those directories figured out and then defined in your EMET configuration file. So that's really the bear that comes with that thing. It's not a big deal once you get it right, but you just have to know about all those versions up front. Okay, Adobe Reader wants to update itself. And it looks like we are back to resolution hell. I did nothing. What did I have it set at last time? 1600? Yeah. Well, we're not going to be able to do the PDF one again. That's the only thing. Apply. Keep changes. All right. Let's see if this one works. Okay. So let's get it set up again. We're going to do again our very reliable MS14064 exploit. See how this one works out. Okay, so we've started. Let's go here. Okay, so something's happening. Metasploit has sent the exploit code. We've been redirected to the attacking URL. But that's it. It dies. And this is actually better than what was going on with EMET 5.1. EMET 5.1, this attack was actually still successful. And under 5.2, it fails. So I'm not sure exactly what they changed, but they improved something that's, preventing this attack from working. It's obviously a good thing. So now we'll move on to our Java attack, see how that goes. Okay, we're working. You see that it generated the malicious jar file, but we're not getting a shell. And the reason for that is we've essentially told EMET, hey, you're not allowed to run Java within the internal network. Now you can go in there and configure all of that stuff. I apologize, I didn't show you the GUI. This is what the EMET GUI looks like. It's not the best view of it. This is a little more interesting when you look at it from this point of view. Each one of these is a application that's been configured for protection. And then along here are the checkboxes. These are each of the family of mitigations. So you can go in there and turn on and off whatever you want on a per application basis. And then once you have the config that you want, you can come up here and click the export button and it'll generate the XML file that you can use to deploy out to all your clients. So we blocked 2 of the attacks. Let's see how we do on the PDF one. Okay, we got our handler. This is completely not an evil PDF, remember. I was thinking a little harder this time. Oh, okay. Well, I'll save. Yes, replace that. Yeah. Oh, there's a warning I shouldn't do something? Oh, okay. I'm going to open it anyway. Oh, no. Oh, no. So EMET did nothing for us there. We're still able to get a interpreter shell. So all that proves is that EMET's not perfect, and that's what we said at the beginning. So just to review, against JRE 1.7, it's fully effective across all versions, and that's actually all versions of Java. I tested this from 1.5 all the way up to 1.8, and EMET blocked it every time. Because, again, you're pretty much telling your clients, hey, if you're trying to run Java on the outside world, no. Not unless we put you in trusted sites or something like that. So very effective against Java. It fixes the Java problem, which fixes a lot of things for a bunch of us. Against the MS14064, fully effective. And, again, that's new in EMET 5.2. I also tested this against PowerPoint. Whenever Microsoft released the MS14064 bulletin, they actually had a snippet right in the security bulletin that said, hey, add this to your EMET configuration file, and you will be, you can block this attack without installing the patch. So pretty cool. Adobe Reader, as we saw, partially effective. It's actually very effective against versions 10.x and above, but versions 8.x and 9.x, I guess they're just too old to be saved. And against Adobe Flash, my testing was inconclusive. I wasn't able to get a reliable Metasploit exploit to work on this particular image. Might be because it's 64-bit. The more likely explanation is that I'm just too stupid to make it work. But FireEye has tested this in their labs. They say that EMET is effective against Flash. I believe them. And again, it does require heavy customization just because of that whole issue with versioning and paths. So, not bad, you know, for something that's free. Overall summary, EMET's a great way to limit exposure. The effectiveness against Java is a huge win because it's a big problem for a lot of us. It's not a replacement for application whitelisting. You should certainly look at other free tools that are out there, things like AppLocker, to actually get into application whitelisting. And then there's an excellent deployment guide. It was for EMET 5.1, but nothing's changed. So TrustedSec has it out there on their site, and if you just Google TrustedSec EMET, you're going to get this deployment guide. And they tell you soup to nuts how to deploy it across the enterprise. So with that, any questions, comments, anything? All right, guys. Well, that's all I got, so thanks for hanging out on the patio with me.